Okay, good evening. It's a little late, but better late than never. The Jewish people waited 210 years to leave Egypt. We could wait a half hour to start the class. Okay, so I was asked to give a class regarding preparations, etc. for Pesach. I'm going to try to keep it to the most basic issues possible, and I'm going to divide it into a few sections. After each after each section, I'm going to stop and allow questions. But please try not to ask questions in the middle because it just ruins the whole flow. Okay. So first of all, why is Pesach such an important holiday? And what does it mean? What is the significance of Pesach? The truth is, in almost every mitzvah that we do, we say Zecher liYetzias Mitzrayim, which, for example, by Kiddush Friday night, we say that we have to. The reason we're making Kiddush is we're remembering to go out of Egypt. There's another mitzvah that is every single day, one of these 6 mitzvahs that we have to remember going out of Egypt. Why was it so important? So we could talk 2 hours about that topic just itself, but I'll get just to a few points. Number one, because the Maral of Prague says that, and he has a whole book, a sefer on the concept of Pesach, and the theme of his book, of his sefer, is that the Jewish people became a nation, became who they are by going out of Egypt, by being taken out of Egypt. And his words is, from the time that the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt, they ceased to be slaves. They ceased to be slaves anymore. As we said, for Shabbos, if anybody was here, we said that there's a very high, one of the high points of the Haggadah that we will say in 2 weeks is that why are we sitting here tonight, the Haggadah, the night of Pesach, and we're thanking God, because if God wouldn't have taken us out of Egypt, Hari anu, uvanenu, uvnei vanenu, mishubadim, hayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim, we and our children, our grandchildren, we would be slaves to Paro in Egypt. So we asked the question, the famous question. We've seen in history many governments and kingdoms have collapsed after 100 years, 200 years. The powerful Soviet Union, after 70 years, who would have thought that the Soviet Union, the Iron Curtain would have fell? You couldn't even escape. People was not. I don't even think anybody ever escaped to the Soviet Union. Just had to, just to walk out of it. So why is it so sure that if God wouldn't have taken us out of Egypt, we would still be in Egypt? And the answer is, it doesn't say we would still be in Egypt. It says we would be mishubad, we would be subjugated to Pharaoh, which means it's a mental thing, it's a state of mind. We would have been slaves, we would have been mishubadim, we would have had slave mentality. Even today you see many nations, they don't know how to be free people. They don't know what it means to be free. Man, I'm not going to use names because some people, they have relatives that even live in those countries, but they're slave mentalities. And that's exactly the Maral says, when God took the Jewish people out of Egypt, he took them away from this slavery, meaning he took them out of Egypt, out of the shibud, the enslavement mentality of Egypt, and they are free men. The Maral says from that moment on, a Jew can never be a slave to anybody else. He could work, he could be subjugated, but he's never a slave. And as the previous Rabbi said, when he was sent to Siberia, to Kostroma in 1929, and he made a famous statement at the train station. He said, throughout the generations, they were able to subjugate our bodies, but not our souls. And that's the concept of Egypt. So that's the importance of Zecher liYetzias Mitzrayim, going out of Egypt, because this was the beginning, this was what created the Jewish people. Also, of course, we have the famous concept that is spoken about so many times in Hasidic literature, that the word Mitzrayim doesn't only mean Egypt, it means Meitzarim, limitations. Because when we go out of Egypt, it shows that we can go out of our limitations. We can go out of everything that we think we're limited to. So that's the importance of Pesach, which is the beginning. There's a very famous argument in the Talmud. When was the world created? Believe it or not. And there's between two great rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. One rabbi says the world was created in Tishrei, and the other rabbi said the world was created in Nisan. And there's a lot of talk about that. What does that mean? First of all, was there a calendar when the world was created? What exactly does it mean? So one of the more famous explanations is that it's not really an argument. It really means there are two steps to creation. One is a physical, natural step, and one is the supernatural, miraculous step. So Tishrei, Tishrei represents natural. Tishrei is the month that we have holidays that we work. We do repentance. We blow the shofar. We sit in the sukkah. That's what we represent. We went out of Egypt without asking God, where are we going to eat? Where are we going to sleep? Can you imagine a Jew going on a trip and not having 3 weeks of food? It's something that it's unbelievable.
That's a miracle.
That alone is a miracle. It's unbelievable. So the one rabbi says the world started in Tishrei. The main creation, so to speak, is on the natural side of things. The other rabbi says that no, the creation of the world is Nisan. Nisan is a month of supernatural, miraculous events. The whole concept of Pesach represents one big miracle after the other. Kabbalistically, we weren't merited. We shouldn't have been merited to go out of Egypt, etc. And God took us out of Egypt, even though we didn't deserve it. The 10 plagues, etc. Which is why the Talmud talks about the concept that when it comes to the secular calendar, the Tishrei is the main year. But when it comes to the Jewish calendar, Nisan, which the month that we find ourselves now is B'Chodesh Harishon. The first month is Nisan, because the Jewish people are miraculous people. So that's really the theme of Pesach. The theme of Pesach is freedom, going out. And one of the actually interesting things is, I said before that every day there's a mitzvah to remember the going out of Egypt, every single day. So if that's the case, what is unique about Pesach? That's in the yeshiva. That's one of the topics that is dealt very extensively. Our Rabbi deals with it, and one of the more foremost Lithuanian Rosh Yeshivas, Rabbi Chaim Abrisk, he deals with it. What's the difference between the remembering of going out of Egypt on Pesach and the remembering of going out of Egypt every single day? It says in the Torah, "Leman tizkor et yom tzeitcha me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha," every single day. And those of us that daven in the morning, we say the shesh schirot. So what's going on? So one of the differences is, there's 5 differences. One of the differences is, a very interesting difference is that, of course, on every day we just mention it, but on Pesach we talk about it a lot. Every day we just mention it. On Pesach it's questions and answers. But one of the main things is, I saw today actually when I was preparing, that on every day we just have to say it. We have to remember going out of Egypt. But on Pesach, there's a special mitzvah to show yourself that you're free. The whole attitude of the Seder, and a lot of the halachas, a lot of the laws, are to show freedom. There's a custom in many communities to put a lot of silver items on the table, and a lot of there's a custom, of course, not a custom, a halacha, that we recline, because the way kings used to eat, or noblemen or freemen used to eat, is reclining. A slave eats hunched over because he doesn't want anybody to take his food or her food. So the whole attitude of a seder is lahares, the Rambam writes, to show that it's that you're free. It's an important aspect of the seder. There's a controversy whether women have to do haseba, have to recline. So the Ashkenazic custom is that women do not have to recline when they drink matzah, eat matzah or drink wine, but the Sephardic halacha is that they do. But if they don't, it's okay. But the concept of reclining is a very serious concept, to the point that if a man, let's say in Ashkenazic custom, if a man doesn't drinks the 4 cups of wine without reclining, or eats the matzah without reclining, he has to do it again, because reclining is a very critical component, because it shows freedom, and that is the theme, so to speak, of the night. Another point, again, this is just a little bit of an introduction before we get to the more dry laws of Pesach, just to give you a little bit of a flavor. Another interesting point is that throughout the Seder there's a dichotomy, there's a contradiction. On the one hand, we talk about being free, but on the other hand, we mention so many times about the slavery. So what's going on? Why are we talking so much about the 10 plagues and how the Egyptians tortured us, etc., if we're talking about freedom? And the answer, of course, is the basic answer. There's a lot of answers, but the basic answer is we can never appreciate freedom unless we understand what slavery was. So in order to understand freedom, we have to go through. That's why the Gemara talks about what's the Haggadah, what is it about? You have to begin with the negative, with the sad part, and you have to conclude with with praising, with the compliments. In other words, if we don't talk about the sad part, we haven't really understood or appreciated the geula, the redemption, to the point that it's very interesting. I'll tell you a little tidbit. The word Haggadah is a very interesting word. We all know what we do at Pesach night. We read the Haggadah. So why is the Haggadah called the Haggadah? So the simple answer is because there's a passage in the Torah that says, "V'higadeta levincha." You should tell your child. That's the whole point. The whole Seder is about education. Seder is about the child, or the child within you. Meaning, because the halacha says that if a person has no children around the Seder, he should ask his wife. If his wife isn't with him, he should ask himself. What does that mean? Because there's always the child within us, the so to speak, the naive or the uneducated child. But on a simple level, it's about tradition. Everybody has. My father did this, my grandfather did that. It's a very serious thing, which I'll get to in a minute. And the Torah says that there has to be the higadet levincha. You have to tell your child, to the point that there's a strong question. I one time wrote an article about this. When a person goes to his father-in-law, or to his grandfather, or to his father, meaning he's there with his children, and the children are listening to the Haggadah by the grandfather, because that's how it is in Jewish families. You give respect to the father, to the father-in-law. Or let's say even when you go to a Chabad Seder, a public Seder, you have the rabbi talking. So aren't we missing out on the basic command to tell your child? In other words, every father has a command. It's a real mitzvah to tell the child. So, and there's a lot of answers to this. One of the answers is that obviously, if it's better, a person should tell his child. But some people say that a grandfather is like a father. Some people say that if the grandfather has a better way of explaining it, because you can see it. And also, I forgot to say this, but I'll say it again. We mentioned before about expressing yourself at the Seder and expressing freedom, etc. This is a very important thing that the Rambam talks about a lot. That the mitzvah is to show freedom, to express freedom. To the point that some people say that the reason that in many communities they wear a kittel, which is a white garment, so some people say that a kittel reminds somebody Nebuch Leilenu of a non-live person, because that's what people are buried in. But some people say that a kittel is also a majestic type of clothing, and that's why you wear it, because now we're free people. On the other hand, I've heard and read, not from one person, but from many people, that they used the Seder night as an opportunity. People that went through the war, went through concentration camp, to tell their children about their experiences. I heard in more than one instance that a person saved the prisoner garb from concentration camp, and he would wear it to the Seder to show the people, what we went through. Because in every generation, b'chol dar v'dar, every generation, they want to eliminate us, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Matzileinu biyadam, God continues to save us. Look at that. What's going on now? The tremendous miracles that we're seeing, and we should see more of those.
Amen.
But Pesach is a very fundamental and a very seminal Yom Tov, and the word Pesach in many ways is called Pesach. So I was saying that the Haggadah, the word Haggadah has two meanings. Haggadah, because the Haggadah to Levit, you should tell your child. But there's another, the interesting, one of the early commentaries, the Abudram, writes that the word Haggadah comes from another place in Torah regarding when a person would bring first fruits. So the wording of the passage in the Torah is V'higadata, you should tell God, meaning you should praise, you should compliment and praise. So the word Haggadah has two meanings. It means number one, tell them the experiences, and also teach them to say thanks, which is, you'll see, if you go through the Haggadah today, Baruch Hashem, we have Haggadahs in every language. You go through the Haggadah, you'll see that towards the end of the Haggadah, we say Hallel, we say Nishmas, we say Hoidul Hashem Kitov Kilol Chazdo. There's a lot of thanks going on, because part of the Haggadah experience is to thank God, to simply thank God for where we are. Okay, so there's a lot to say. Again, Pesach is Pesach. We can talk a lot about Pesach in Egypt, and I'm sure you've heard of a lot, but this is just a tidbit of an introduction. So we're going to talk about a little bit more the halachot, the laws. So I'll divide it into a few sections. Number one, there's the laws that we talk about. What do we do till Pesach? What do we do till Pesach? So everybody knows, and especially the people that are here tonight, that we clean the house. Unfortunately, we clean. Yeah, right. Actually, instead of saying we clean the house, I should say you clean the house. It's interesting. There's a one of my favorite rabbis, the Chassam Sofer, writes in a response to a person who asked him a question. He says, I'm sorry, I can't fully answer you because my wife, the holy lady, the holy angel, threw me out of the house in order to clean for Pesach. So he really writes that, by the way. He raps you like that. Ki Gershuni. She didn't want him to help. She wanted him to be, the some sort of. Yeah, that was the best help. Right. He writes very eloquently. He says, "Ki noshim sitkanios." The righteous women, Girshuni hayom. They expelled me from my room, my books. So I don't have my books with me. But in any case, so unfortunately, it's become a little bit of a confusion, and I'll try to clarify it a little bit. Many people think that Pesach, of course, is spring cleaning, and it's not spring cleaning. And sometimes, unfortunately, because of the spring cleaning, they miss the entire objective. They spend a lot of time cleaning under the bed when nobody eats under the bed, under the sofa, etc., and they miss the obvious. So cleaning for Pesach has to do with cleaning for chametz. A place that you don't take chametz, you don't have to clean. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to clean. You check it out to see if there's a room or a thing that you never put chametz in. So it needs a cursory exam, but it doesn't need the whole emergency scrubbing, etc. and cleaning. On the other hand, there are a lot of places that people don't realize what that needs cleaning. For example, my car has more chametz than a regular grocery store. I eat every day in my car. I have all my danishes and all my sandwiches and my chips. And believe me, there's more chametz in my car than there is in my room. So, but people don't think about cleaning the car. They maybe And also, just because you send it to a detail doesn't look for chametz. A detail makes sure that the engine is clean. So you're spending $180 cleaning the engine for Pesach. So, it's a good idea to clean the car, to take a vacuum and clean between the seats, etc., etc. And we're going to talk later about checking your house for chametz. Part of the checking is also to check the car. So Rabbi Shustin once told me, you don't have to check it Friday, the night of B'dikas chametz. As long as you check it before Pesach, the same thing with your office. Again, the same concept. People have an office, but they don't think about checking their office. They eat lunch every day in their office. They have snacks. They have things like that. They have in their drawers, who knows what. So again, the same thing. They clean their house. They go crazy cleaning their house, but they don't clean their office or their car, and that needs to be done. So again, the point being, not to simplify it, not to take away the importance, but the point is focus more on where the food is. Another thing that people need to realize is that we're checking for chametz. What is chametz? Chametz is anything that comes from the 5 grains of bread: wheat, oat, spelt, all that stuff. The stuff that you make bread with, etc. So, for example, we know that according to Ashkenazim, we don't eat rice. But we don't eat rice, but rice isn't chametz. Rice is what's called kitnias, or beans, or nuts. Those things are not chametz. You shouldn't have them next to you because you might come to eat it. But if a person, for example, theoretically has a bag of rice, he doesn't have to get rid of it. He doesn't have to clean it. He doesn't have to. He just puts it away in a place where he's not going to come, or she's not going to come. I'm going to use the word he because that's just the general length. Doesn't mean he only a male. Doesn't mean, so again, it's we're talking about stuff that is chametz. Not. Well, of course, that's what I said before. I said that. I'm saying, but even there are certain things that. Yeah. But it is very important. But the main thing is not to. Yeah, but the main thing is not to go overboard. And again, spending time lifting up the couch is a little bit overkill. Again, if a person has small children, etc., etc. So of course, between the couch, between the pillows, between the things, is you'll always find a pound of Cheerios, a pound of whatever. Again, use your common sense. It's a place that was used. So the best thing is, of course, Rabbi Shustin told me that let's say you have a large house. It's impossible to check your home well before the night before Pesach. A person is not gonna. In the olden days, the house was 2 rooms. It was a bedroom that converted into a dining room and a kitchen. So you did b'dikas chametz. You did your house. Today, everybody has a large house: 3 bedrooms, a dining room, a living room, a kitchen. So what you do is you make sure you clean the house. You clean it, and basically, you make sure that nobody takes chametz into that room. I don't always follow instructions, so I'm guilty. But let's say you Yishtadel, and the night of Pesach, you put a little piece of bread there and you walk around and you see it. But there's no way that a person can get through checking the whole house the night before Pesach. So as you clean the house for Pesach, you make sure that house is clean from chametz, and you just make sure nobody goes in there, and that's good enough. The same thing with the car, same thing with the office. Again, the halacha is that you have to check with the candle, but it doesn't mean that you always check with the candle. It means you can use a flashlight, etc. And obviously, in certain places, a flashlight is better, and a candle is dangerous. But we use a candle because that's the minig, that's what it says in the Gemara and the Talmud. So we use a candle. And for everything, I want you to know, for every single thing, you'll see in a minute, every single thing, there's a spiritual ramification. So light has something to do with all this, the night before the 14th. It's all very, very spiritual stuff. So don't belittle it. Don't say that, we have flashlights, why do we have to waste our time with the candle? There's a lot of spiritual things that we don't always understand, and it's going on over there, so follow those directions. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that concept, about up to the point of Pesach? About the house, cleaning the house? No? Okay.
You have to use the candle.
Sure, yeah. You should use a candle a little bit, but if you want to check in the places that you can't use a candle like under the bed, you're going to burn the bed. Use a flashlight.
לעשות עם נוצה.
כן, ברור, of course. You go to Cambridge, you go to any German, any kosher store, they sell chametz kits, which is with a feather and with a spoon and with a thing, and it's all important. Again, the same point. Don't belittle it, because all these things, believe it or not, have sources in very, very deep places. And the reason why I use a feather and notzah is because you're able to clean the cracks and crevices with a feather. Today they didn't have vacuum cleaners. They didn't have, so they were able to clean it like that. Okay.
All nuts are keeping you?
Huh?
All nuts are keeping
No, only peanuts.
Okay, that's
I want to get to that in a minute.
That's what I
Only peanuts. No, wait a second. Kidneyot is a lot more than nuts, but yeah. But in the nut world, the only nut that is prohibited is peanuts. Everything else is not prohibited, even for people that are very strict. We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to that in a second. For Ashkenazim. For Ashkenazim. Okay. By the way, Ashkenazim and there are a lot of Sephardim that have the custom not to eat kitniyot, but I'll leave that. I'm not that familiar with a lot of the different customs, but there are a lot of Sephardim that don't eat kitniyot either. Okay.
Yes,
Do you want to mention here about selling the chametz, or is that going to be?
Yeah, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I'm getting to all that.
Because we have the.
Yeah, till now. Okay, so that's till now we got to the cleaning part. Now we're going to get to the selling the chametz. So there's a very big misunderstanding, and I'm going to share with you something that probably most people don't know, and I'll tell you a little story, a very embarrassing story. Many years ago, when I first came to Sherman Oaks, so I was very enthusiastic. So there was a gentleman, Mr. Franklin, who had an office on Sepulveda Boulevard. So I went there to sell his chametz and give him matzah. And downstairs there was a snack bar. It was not a snack bar, a little luncheonette or something like that. A little restaurant. It wasn't really a restaurant. It was like a cafe or something like that. So he told me, go downstairs. The lady that owns the cafe, she's Jewish. So I go in there and she looks at me. She says, "Can I help?" I said, "Oh yeah, sure. I give me a few minutes. There were a few people, a few customers." She was very excited. She was very happy. There was a lawyer there, a mechutzef, a very arrogant person, like lawyers usually are. And he started talking. He said, "This is ridiculous. What are you doing, selling the chametz? It's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of in my life. She's going to have the store open. She's not closing. What are you selling it for?" So I was new at the job. I didn't really have the courage to tell him what I wanted to tell him, and I just let it slide because I wasn't going to not sell the chametz. She wasn't not going to sell the chametz. I just didn't want to get into an argument. So the truth is, the whole concept of selling the chametz, and if we only walk away with this tidbit of knowledge tonight, so I'll be happy. The whole concept of selling the chametz is a very, very misunderstood concept. And I'll begin with a question. Let's say a person has in his house a housekeeper, or he has a business with a non-Jewish partner. And let's say in the house for his non-Jewish employee or in business, he has non-kosher food, real non-kosher food. Let's say ham or non-kosher meat or whatever it is. How come we don't sell the non-kosher stuff? How come only when it comes to Pesach we sell our chametz? Why? What's going on? Why do we only focus on Pesach, on Passover, that we sell our chametz? But when somebody has non-kosher items in his house, whether he's allowed to or not, that's a whole other question. But if he has it, why don't we sell it? And the answer is because I'll ask you another question. What is unique about Pesach? What's unique about Pesach is, I'll tell you what it is, and you'll understand it yourself. That 2 hours ago, let's say today is Pesach, right? Tonight is Pesach. 5 hours ago, we ate a beautiful sandwich, a beautiful turkey sandwich with bread, and we made a bracha, and it was kosher, and we made the after bracha, and suddenly it's prohibited. Suddenly, what happened? The answer is because 5 hours ago we were allowed to eat bread, and now we're not allowed to eat bread. So since we are used to eating bread and donuts and cheesecake and cinnamon danishes, we're used to it. So therefore, our sages, the Torah said a special prohibition that doesn't exist by non-kosher, that we can't have it in our house. Bal yira'eh u'bal yimatzeh. You can't see it and you can't have it. Meaning like this. Meaning on Pesach, there's a special prohibition besides not being able to eat it, which is also by non-kosher. But when it comes to non-kosher, a whole year I don't eat it. So I'm separate from it. I'm not going to come to eat the non-kosher because I know that that's not kosher. Now, I'm not going to say there's other halachas that I'm not mentioning about not being around non-kosher. But the essential comment of, let's say, somebody that does have non-kosher, right?
For pets food.
Pet food, or let's even say just real non-kosher, real. He has 5 non-Jewish employees, and non-kosher and kosher food is much more expensive. So he gives them to eat, which he's allowed to. He gives them to eat non-kosher food. He's allowed to. Let's keep it simple. There are issues, but he's allowed to theoretically have non-kosher food, and he doesn't have to sell it. He doesn't have to get rid of it. He doesn't have to destroy it. But when it comes to chametz, we have this special prohibition that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's called you should not see it, and you should not find it. Meaning it shouldn't be in your possession. So very good. So what happens if what happens if somebody has a lot of chametz in his house? So theoretically, in the olden days, like I said before, there was no refrigerators, there was no storage facilities, there was no chemicals that kept the foods. So a person, what did he have when it came Pesach? He had a half a loaf of bread, he had a half a bottle of vodka, and so theoretically, they took that chametz and they destroyed it and they burnt it. But today, really, the truth is, there was a controversy about this whole thing of selling the chametz, but they came to the conclusion that many people cannot simply, it's not possible, not feasible. People that own factories of alcohol, people that own grocery stores, people that own, there are a lot of things that today are different than it used to be, and in everybody's house he has a bar of thing. Torah knows that it's going to be difficult for somebody to destroy everything he owns, his whole bourbon collection, his whole scotch collection, everything that he has. It's serious things. So in order to expel from himself this prohibition of not having in your possession any chametz, the rabbis instituted the mechiras chametz, the selling of the chametz. Again, it doesn't mean that you're allowed to eat the chametz. Of course not. It doesn't. But what it accomplishes is that it takes the person away from that biblical prohibition of not having chametz in your possession. So now, throughout the years, again, there is controversy. There are, believe it or not, many rabbis, even today, that say that you shouldn't sell complete chametz, meaning you shouldn't sell your whiskey collection. You shouldn't sell your pantry full of cookies and cakes and all that stuff. But there are many rabbis, including the first, in the custom of Chabad, that we do sell. So according to them, the only thing that they sell are the vessels, the pots and pans, because they have within them chametz, which is for another discussion, and they don't sell real chametz. But the custom of many communities. I grew up in a non-Chabad community. It was a simple thing. Many communities, they sell even complete chametz. And the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, came out with a very strong legal document that actually is a legal document. When I was a child, there was a joke that used to go around that one time in Israel, the Arab leader, whatever, the Pasha, whatever his name was, the Mufti, called in Jerusalem, there was the famous Arab that he would buy the chametz, that the chief rabbis would use to buy the chametz. So they say a story one time that there was a crisis, What's the crisis? That the mufti told the Arab who bought the chametz not to sell it back to the Jews, not to give it back. And so this was a childhood story. But the truth is, if somebody knows the real law, if somebody goes through the laws, which I did, the story doesn't even begin, because the way it works is that just like when I buy a house, I put a down payment, and then somebody gives me credit, whether it's a bank or even sometimes the owner. The same thing. I'm selling to the non-Jew. I'm selling $10 million worth of chametz, and which is, let's say, the whole Los Angeles. Rabbi Shusterman sells for the whole California. He sells probably millions of dollars worth of chametz, right? So there's a legal document, and the non-Jew gives a down payment, $25, whatever. It doesn't matter, because it's a legal concept. Doesn't matter. There's a legal point in a contract that says for valuable consideration. It's a legal document. I just had one. And it's $1. A dollar is enough to say for a valuable consideration. So the non-Jew gives a down payment of $25 for the chametz. He gives another down payment for each place where the chametz is, because that's another stringency that the first Lubavitcher Rebbe instituted. That not only do we sell the chametz, but we rent him the place where the chametz is. It's another stringency. And if he has to pay it within an hour after Pesach, if he wants to buy the chametz. If he wants to buy the chametz, Gesund today, bring a check for $10 million, and you can have the chametz. It's yours. If you don't, so the sale is now void. In other words, you have until an hour after Pesach or a day after Pesach to come up with the money. If you don't come up with the money, so Gesund today, the sale is we'll buy. What they do is they buy it back. Because most of the time, the person who buys the chametz, the non-Jew, he's very happy, he's very grateful to get the $1,000 here, $1,000 there. It's a very, very nice thing. But in case that he wouldn't, so Gesund today, we'll take it to court, and it's a legal document, and you owe us $10 million. You don't have the $10 million to buy back the chametz, so it's yours. So the bottom line that I want to explain to you is, it's not mumbo jumbo, and it's not some type of a hocus pocus or some type of a segula that we make, that we write something and it's not our chametz. It's a legal document. It's a legal document that, what does it accomplish? Not that we can eat chametz, chas v'shalom. It's a legal document that takes away from the prohibition that is unique to chametz, the Pesach, of owning it. And believe it or not, there are a lot of cases in halacha, a lot of responsim. What happens if somebody forgot to sell the chametz? Guy that owns a bar, owns a factory full of chametz, he forgot. It's a serious issue. It's a serious thing, because chametz that was in your possession over Pesach, you cannot have after Pesach. You cannot use it after Pesach. It's a serious issue. So selling. So the Rebbe was asked. It's a very seminal letter from the Rebbe that is very discussed. The Rebbe asked, what is it? What is this business that the Chabad rabbis are going around selling chametz to people that are going to use the chametz anyways? In other words, they're selling chametz, but they're using it. In other words, let's say a guy like this lady that I told you before. Let's say she has a canteen or a store and she's going to be open Pesach, and she's going to sell and she's going to use the chametz. So the Rebbe says she's doing something wrong by violating the contract, but that doesn't mean that the contract is violated. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay.
What about dog foods?
Again, these are it's a serious problem. Pet food is a serious issue.
I don't have a dog.
I'm just saying, no, but it's a very serious issue.
Yeah.
And there are certain. You go on Google. There are certain. First of all, there are certain. They have already by now certain brands that they know are not chametz, and they're more. I remember we had a pet once when one of my children was little, and we went and we bought like actual protein, like meat or whatever it was, and not to have but a lot of pet food is full of chametz. Yeah, it's a
What
problem.
about to give them to eating outside?
Doesn't matter. It's yours. That's the problem.
But
But there is
the ownership, the problem.
some people say that you should sell the pet to a non-Jew, and the non-Jew will give the food. A pet is a problem. A pet, I'm not minimizing it, but there are. I think the Star K has a list of very few brands of pet food that aren't chametz.
Fish food also is a problem.
Yeah, fish food is also a problem. Yeah, exactly.
But you know what, the fish food you can buy for 10 days, a small one, and it's gonna be inside the.
But it's
aquarium.
chametz, it's not chametz. You cannot own it.
It's a problem. All these pet foods,
Take the aquarium out.
pet
You need to
food,
find food that is not chametz.
pet foods is a problem.
Some people give them matzah. And while we're on that topic, there is you can sell your chametz if you haven't done so yet, please do that today.
Yeah, let's do it today before leaving.
After Rabbi finishes.
For children, like if they need, like drink oat milk, like
Yeah, you have to find a
another
real alternative. Oat milk is real chametz. It's oats.
Yeah.
So the problem becomes.
Almond milk is okay, right?
Oh, yeah, I'll get to that. The problem becomes not so much children who drink oat milk. Where there's certain children, babies that need formula, and unfortunately, most of the formula is also made of chametz. But again, thank God we live in an age where there are formulas come from Israel, and even American formulas that are not chametz. It's available. 20 years ago, it was an issue. 20 years ago, it was a problem. Again, when it comes to again in today's day and age, it's not always a problem of chametz. It's a problem for Ashkenazim of kitnius, which is the legumes. So when it comes to that issue, the rabbis are much more lenient as it relates to a sick person or a child, etc., etc. I'll share with you a answer from the Rebbe, which is shocking, which goes to show you how we really need to know what we're talking about. There's another issue. I'll get to you in a minute. There's another issue that we stay away from on Pesach, as if everything else is not enough of a problem. There's another issue that we stay away from, and that is we don't wet the chametz with water. You can wet it, so that's called shruya in Hebrew, gebrux in Yiddish, and Chabad is extremely sensitive to that because it's a very far-fetched stringency. Even the first Rebbe writes that it's very, very far, but nevertheless we're stringent, and there's Kabbalistic reasons for it. And the thought behind it is that how does something which is unusual, because again, you're eating something. I'll tell you what I mean. What really should happen is we shouldn't have matzah on Pesach, because the one thing that is the closest to bread is matzah. It even has the same letters except for one word, and even that word, even one letter, is almost the same. How do you spell matzah? Mem sadik hey. How do you spell chametz? Mem sadik ches. So mem sadik is the same in both words. The hey and the ches is a little bit. It's a little. The hey, you make a hey a little higher, and it becomes a ches. So the concept is, if you really want to stay away from any chance of eating chametz, the Arizal, the Holy Ari, writes that if somebody is very careful in not having even a drop of chametz, and we'll get to that in a minute, he won't sin a whole year. So there's a concept of not even eating a mashu. Mashu is I don't know how to say it. It's like a nothing, like a dot of a mustard dot. So the question becomes, if that's the case, why does God tell us to eat matzah? Stay away from matzah and eat eggs and chicken and potatoes and do it, even rice, but stay away from flour. You're almost there. What's the difference between how does matzah become chametz? How does matzah become chametz? You let it stay another minute, over 18 minutes, and it's chametz, right? So the way flour becomes chametz is when you put water on it. Only water, by the way. If you put juice, real juice, not today's juice that's mixed with water, but you take, let's say, an orange, right? Take an orange and you squeeze it, and you make real orange juice, and you don't wash the oranges because that has some water. You take an orange off the tree, you peel it, because the peel is who knows what. Maybe somebody ate a sandwich over the orange. It's a joke. And you peel the orange and you squeeze it. That juice will never turn dough into chametz. It's just a fact. It's just a chemical fact. So what are we worried about? We're worried that on the matzah there was a little flour, because in the olden days they didn't have sophisticated ovens like we have today. And the ovens was from wood. One guy towards the end of the shift, there wasn't that much wood, so the matzah wasn't really cooked, wasn't really baked. So there's some little flour left on the matzah. So he's gonna spill the water on the matzah. Boom! It's gonna be chametz. It's even the first Rabbi, when he writes about it, says this is a very far-fetched chumrah stringency, but we are stringent. So the Rebbe was asked, if you have a choice to give a child or a sick person either kitniot or shruya, what should you choose? In other words, or wet matzah. And the Rebbe answered, believe it or not, give him kitniot. Because shruya, this concept of eating wet matzah, is so spiritually problematic that it's better to eat kitniot. So when it comes, this whole thing that I just said 5 minutes was to tell you that when it comes to sick people, old people, little children, the rabbis are much more lenient when it comes to a lot of things than when it comes to
Lenient with kitniot, not with.
yeah, of course, lenient with kitniot, not chametz. Many years ago, I used to suffer from heartburn, so I was very gratified to find out that Tums was kosher l'Pesach, and it had a kosher l'Pesach symbol. Today it doesn't anymore. So I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a mistake. So I called up the rabbi who was in charge, and he tells me, yes, it's in fact it's kosher l'Pesach. And as he hangs up, or as he's about to hang up, he says, but it's kitnius. It's kitnius. So I said, wait a minute, what does that help me then? Because I don't eat kitnius. He says, well, when it comes, he told me something I didn't know, which is a lot. He says that when it comes to medicine, a lot of medicines that they say are kosher l'Pesach have, in fact, kitnius. So he told me, he says, but if you need it, you can have. This is Rabbi Shusterman. It was another different rabbi. He says, but if you need it, you're allowed to have it, because when it comes to medicine, you can have kitnius. So I just want to tell you, if anybody suffers from, because Pesach, you eat wine and matzah, if you have heartburn, go to CVS or Amazon, and you have a lot of these over-the-counter medications like Zantac and other heartburn medications that today you can buy over-the-counter. What 10 years ago you needed a prescription for, and it's works very effective. It's very effective, and it's a medicine. It's not a problem, because generally we'll get to that in a second about the medicine, but generally that's not an issue.
I have a question.
Sure.
So Ashkenazi cannot eat any kitniot, correct?
That's why the Sephardim have slichot al Elul. They eat rice on Pesach.
I had full medication for my kidneys.
We have to do more
What?
Medication for my kidneys, it's soda l'shtia.
So I need.
So,
Is it made in America?
yes.
So first of all, me and Rabbi Lipsker have a list. There's a 95% chance that it's okay. But most medications made in America, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll answer in a minute. But you had a question, Noah.
Yes, I have a cat. It's very,
Picky.
very picky. She doesn't eat
Anything.
I make.
Mhm.
She doesn't eat any kind
The
of,
salmon.
you know.
Do you have a housekeeper, or do you have somebody who? Do you have somebody that you know that's not Jewish?
Sarah.
No, she's very hissy. She doesn't get along with nobody.
Okay, I get.
Actually, if we got it,
I would Google. Is there any cat food that's
she
kosher
has
for
a lot of
Pesach?
issues.
I'm just saying. I would Google is any Google any cat food kosher for Pesach, because today, thank God, we're living in a time.
She doesn't eat.
Okay, so she was good, so she doesn't eat.
So if she doesn't eat, then what? We don't have it.
What do you mean? You said she doesn't eat.
Well, I mean, she doesn't eat any other food but
Uh-huh.
what she wants. It's just certain brand.
I think she's
Yeah, well, okay.
You know, this is a cat, we actually saved her life,
Uh-huh.
we don't know.
Okay, it's a good question. I guess you know, let me look into it, and then if I can answer you, I'll answer you through my
Yeah,
life,
if you
okay?
catch with me and I'll see
Rabbi,
it.
what about matzo balls? You can't put matzo in water, how do you eat matzo balls?
That's the dilemma that's the dilemma. You see, you see, yeah.
That's the $1 million question.
That's the $1 million question.
So we
You know-
only eat matzo balls on the last day of Pesach.
You know-
We are allowed to make the
She's
matzah.
the owner.
The last day of Pesach, we all have us, everybody wets the matzah. So we wait the whole Pesach very excitedly to the last day.
Oh, so you don't
And
matzo
Just to be clear on a few things, there are many tzaddikim,
They put in the soup.
many righteous people, tzaddikim, not regular Jews, tzaddikim, that were not, their custom was not to be careful on what we just said. So more the Hasidic communities, my father, for example, did not grow up Chabad, my mother, my father, and they did not wet the matzah. So, but there are a lot of holy, special tzaddikim Jews that were not careful about wetting the matzah. And I just want to tell you that one of the biggest problems and issues when people started becoming Baalei Tshuva, closer to Judaism, and obviously there was issues with their parents who weren't so religious, and to a Jewish mother, not to have matzah balls on Pesach is like eating chametz on Pesach. So you know that was one of the major issues. It was major.
What about, I'm Sephardic, my husband is Ashkenaz.
So you have to go according to your husband.
Always had a joke like that.
Anyways, so but by the way, they're you know the creative chefs today make matzah balls from potato starch, etc., and it looks and tastes just as good as everything else. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about different foods. Okay, we mentioned medicines, so let me just again, I have a book in Shul with 10,000 names of medicines. So I'm not going to go through it, but Rabbi Lipsker and I can answer if there's anything. Let me just give you a general rule. What's the problem with medicines besides kidneys, which we said before that most rabbis will tell you that if you need to take a medicine, it's okay. So general rule that I heard from the CRC, which I think is one of the best kosher agencies in the world, if it's something that you swallow, it's acceptable. That's number one. Number two, if it's something that has no flavor, it's acceptable. The problem becomes something that's chewable, like a Tums, or some other lozenge or something. A gummy vitamin. Those are actually very problematic. So again, today, you know, so if it's made, no, what's the problem? A lot of the problem of medications and cosmetics is because it's made with alcohol. So alcohol can be made two ways. One way can be made with what's called natural alcohol, which is usually sometimes made either with potatoes or with wheat, or synthetic alcohol. There's a name for it, MED or something like that. So my understanding, based on my conversations with the CRC, is that in the American brands are generally only synthetic alcohol. American companies today do not use real alcohol. In Ukraine or in Spain, I don't know if it's outside of America, especially or maybe Paris, they may use. I doubt Paris, but they may use items that have real alcohol, like wheat alcohol. So again, if it's an American item, you're probably safe because the alcohol within it is synthetic. Another thing we need to know is that the problem of using all these things is whether it could be turned into something eventually with food. So something that can't be ever turned into food, something that is not able to be, like for example, they say for example nail polish. That's a good example. Nail polish. All nail polish is acceptable because even if it would have something, it could never be used as chametz. Or for example, they tell me the solid deodorants. The spray deodorants are okay, but a lot of the famous brands, Colgate, etc., a lot of these famous companies, American companies, they don't use. It's known that they don't use synthetic real alcohol, so all their products are okay, like Palmolive and Colgate and a lot of these Revlon, a lot of these famous companies, they're all acceptable.
Baking soda.
Colgate is okay?
Colgate is okay, yeah.
Baking soda is okay.
I don't know about baking soda. That I don't
That's
know.
what I'm saying.
So I want to just give you another important piece of information.
What about this?
In today's day and age,
Oh, lipstick.
other than extremely few things, everything that you buy for Pesach has to have a kosher symbol. I'll give you an example, an incredible story that I heard from the rabbi that was there, that he went to Tunisia. I understand that their dates are the best in the world. He went to Tunisia because they wanted to give a hechsher, not for Pesach, on dates, and he went. It's a big trip, and he said to himself on the way there, like, why am I even going to a factory that sells dates? What could possibly be wrong with dates? And he comes to the factory, and the way that in order to, even I think he had a video of it, in order for the way that they process the dates, the real dates, not even crushed dates or products made from dates, the actual, what you buy in the store, the tray that comes with with beautiful rows of dates. He says the way that the conveyor belt was able to very nicely put the dates into the box, they used to use wheat. They covered it with wheat. So all the weight, the dates was full of wheat. So he learned then that there's nothing is safe, so to speak. Nothing is safe. I even saw today something I used to always say, and probably my wife, I didn't have a chance to tell Ruti yet, that taster's choice was always acceptable for Pesach, but they came out with a notice that it's not today.
Oh, really?
Today, you have to have you can get kosher taster's choice.
There is kosher.
No, there is kosher. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's crazy. So,
Seasoning has to
what?
be also seasoning.
Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
That's their choice.
But
Everything needs to be with
but certain things. I'll tell you a few things. That doesn't have to be with a symbol. For example, regular sugar, regular, the good sugar, domino sugar does not have to have a hechsher. Extra virgin olive oil does not have to have a hechsher. It's an interesting reason why, by the way. Every oil is made, it's crazy, Anybody that doesn't know, for example, if I go and give a hechsher, don't rely on it. Because if you don't know, it's like a doctor. I could be the greatest person in the world, but I'm not a doctor. Today, the kosher world is so advanced, and the manufacturing world is so advanced. Again, the story with the dates, or for example, the way they make oil. The way they make oil in the world is a whole system, and that system contains issues of chametz. It's with hot, and it goes through a hot situation. The only oil that is cold pressed is extra virgin olive oil. That's the only oil that is manufactured that is extra virgin olive oil, and it doesn't even need a kosher symbol. It's kosher, and it's kosher for
It's
Pesach.
extra virgin, not
That's the
just-
extra virgin olive oil. And the same thing with salt. Regular salt also does not need a hechsher. And there's a few other things,
What
but
else?
Sugar, salt,
extra virgin olive oil.
extra virgin olive oil, and regular unflavored tea, water that doesn't have any additives. By the way,
How about the seltzer water?
you know how they make seltzer? You're not going to believe it. The way the way they make the bubbles, so something in the whole bubble situation is with starch, with chametz, and it's just amazing where chametz comes in. So a seltzer has to have a hechsher. If it's a natural, there are.
If you have a soda stream at home.
So again, I don't know what that thing that the soda stream
Oh.
makes the bubbles, has to have a hefsher. K-cups have to have a hefsher. All these things, anything that's not natural, unflavored coffee bean. Just if you buy, my daughter-in-law's family, they're very into coffee. They grind their own coffee. If you buy unflavored raw coffee beans, it's kosher. Any unflavored nuts besides peanuts, for example, almonds, walnuts, pecans, not the cut up stuff, just the regular, pistachio, for example, not the pistachios that are processed with flavors.
Yeah.
Regular pistachios,
Even if they're peeled?
even if it's natural, if it's natural,
Unsalted.
raw, unsalted, unprocessed almonds, walnuts, cashews, but a lot of them are processed. You have to be careful. But if it's raw and it's whatever, it's acceptable. Again, the only peanut that is not acceptable, the only nut that's not acceptable is peanuts. And there's a lot more things that's kidneys. For example, of course, sesame seeds. There's kidneys, which means that you can't have hummus if you're Ashkenaz. And hummus is the love is said to be shul Ashkenaz.
Now
Chickpeas, peas, for example, peas is a legume, etc. Huh? Well, the quinoa is a controversy, but I'll tell you it's okay. Yeah.
Any may.
If you buy yogurt before Passover that has OU and you don't open it.
No, it has to have a OUP. It has to, because if it's flavored, they have
You
flavor.
said that in general, whether it's kidney or not.
I'm telling you, as a rabbi, you cannot buy anything today that is made that doesn't have a P, because if it's kosher milk, you could buy it. If it's kosher milk, what? So extra virgin olive oil is good.
Operating from Israel, my friend, they have olive trade and they go in the Bet Chabad in Bet Chabad.
I'm sorry, I say it again.
Bet Chabad.
Yeah?
Bet Chabad to do the olive oil. It's in Chabad.
They make it themselves.
They make it themselves.
Okay. It's like you take it.
Gallons.
I will tell you. Okay, Baruch Hashem. I will tell you that if you want to buy orange juice, you have to buy orange juice that's kosher for Pesach, because I don't know what else they put in there. I told you, let me just explain. If bubbles in the seltzer can be a problem, so the orange juice can be a problem. So, but if you go to your tree and you take 100 oranges and you make orange juice, gesundheit, I mean, that's how your grandmother did it.
I asked them if it's something if it's kosher for Passover. He said all of Chabad buying olive oil from them.
Okay,
And
I'm sure it's great.
Without being extra virgin?
No, he made it. They had their own tree in the back. That's what she's saying.
What's the definition of the word kidney?
Legumes, probably.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
I don't know.
כתוב על זה גם כן, בהשגחה של הרב, אני לא זוכרת איך קוראים לו, כשר לפסח.
יש 1,000 דברים קשה לפסח.
Because I saw in the Cambridge they had the same ones.
Again, avocado is good. Avocado is good. I eat avocados on Pesach. I mean, avocado is good. Again, it needs to have a hefsher, because again, I don't know what they put in it. I don't know what the process of making that avocado oil is.
I saw they sold it in Cambridge.
Yeah, but it could be that it has a kosher symbol.
Yeah, they sell kosher for Pesach.
I'm sure
avocado.
they sell everything kosher.
Avocado oil.
Just say OUP.
Or you be whatever you say. Well, maybe it's a Jewish kosher. I don't know.
Up there.
Yeah, it's kosher for Passover avocado oil.
Yeah, but you're bringing up a good point. Not everything that they sell in the kosher market is kosher.
Exactly.
So you have to check everything.
You always have to check.
Not everything that's what it's kosher.
For Passover.
I'm not saying, even you have to be very diligent. Sometimes mistakes happen. It's just mistakes, it's unfortunate. Nobody's doing it on purpose. Nobody's trying to deceive you, but unfortunately it's a problem. And by the way, every year, now that there's WhatsApp, it's even like much more. Every year they come out with one of these things that they were selling something in a store like Cambridge, who are wonderful people. They help a lot. We do a lot of things with them, charity work. They're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tzaddikim. But every year there's always a story how like they had, no, they were selling, matzah that had bread in it. I mean, I'm just, it's just like, it just always, you listen, go into a store like Cambridge and there's 7,000 items, there's, the non-Jewish employee takes out a carton of cookies, and instead of having Pesach cookies, it's regular cookies, and it's mamish chametz. Okay, you have to be very diligent. Okay. Wait 1 second. You want to hear something else funny? According to the CRC, any raw meat or chicken is meaning as long as you buy it from a reliable kosher butcher is okay. What has to have kosher l'Pesach? A special certification, chopped meat. Because the way, again, the same point, the way that the meat is ground into ground beef is they do something there to make it easier to come out of the machine, and that something has serious issues with it. So yeah, sure.
So like the packaged
It's-
chicken at Empire, you
Yeah,
can use.
yeah. Those things are kosher. It has Pesach.
That kosher, like in Trader Joe's.
Yeah,
Those are good.
again, everything. I'm going to tell you that everything except for salt and sugar and raw almonds and tea, extra virgin olive oil has to have a kosher symbol, a Pesach symbol. Same thing. There are. Go home tonight and Google what items can I buy that doesn't need a kosher symbol, and you have.
But if you choose,
What's that? What?
Kosher from Passover.
Huh?
The internet sometimes gives.
No, it'll come up with, let's say, I like the CRC. They're in my opinion, they're the CRC or alternatively the OK, or OU, of course. Those three, if they say that you could buy something without any hefsher, like they used to say about coffee, like a Taster's Choice was supposedly the gold standard. Today seems to be different. But let's say Lipton tea. Lipton tea is regular tea, unflavored. You can buy Lipton tea.
Used to be like Palmolive.
Yeah, they have certain. I'll give you an example.
They will
And
tell
then
you
I'll get to you in a
which
second.
detergent
I'll
you
give
can
you an
use.
example. Any kosher wine is kosher l'Pesach. Any kosher wine is kosher l'Pesach.
So the net package.
But if it has OU on it, kosher,
Huh?
it's okay. Like,
It has to have OUP.
P. Yes, have the
even
P.
the big raw meat,
Yeah,
it has to have
yeah.
OUP.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know how can I? You had a question?
Is it true, I was told that if a dog is not able to eat them, then it's safe for Pesach? Or is
Right,
that
yeah,
correct?
that's
Okay,
one of the
that's
criteria.
okay.
But there is an issue with that, and I'm not going to get into it because it's beyond the purview of tonight, that if something that can be transformed back, so that's an issue. But again, for example, that's why I said that,
Like
for example,
shampoo.
nail polish or shampoo, things like that are permissible stuff, okay? Okay,
But not food. It's only like food.
so let's go to the Seder. I'm going to tell you a story, and from this story you understand a lot, and then we'll get to the measurements and maybe one or two other points, and that's it. So it was once it's my favorite Hasidic and Pesach story. I say it every year. That there was a very holy rabbi in Poland, in Galicia. His name was the Belzer Rebbe. My father grew up in Hungary, and the way he describes it, that Belz, which was a Hasidic dynasty, still exists today, was like the holy of holies. He said Belz, it was like you couldn't get holier than that. So one day, a chassid who was actually a farmer came the Pesach morning to the house of the Belzer Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Shuala, Belzer Rebbe, and he brought a sack of beautiful carrots. And he tells the staff in the Rebbe's house that I brought this for the Rebbe to use on his Seder plate for karpas. Karpas is one of the 6 components on the Seder plate that is a vegetable, because you make a borei pri adama. So technically, you could theoretically use a carrot for karpas. So he says that I specifically cultivated these carrots for the Rebbe that he should use for karpas. Okay? So he lived 2-hour buggy ride from Bells. So it took him 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to get back. So he comes back at Weiss, 12 o'clock noon, he comes back, he did his job, he took the Rebbe this precious commodity, these beautiful carrots for the Rebbe to use, and the guy in charge of the farm, the guy in charge of the vegetables, tells him, he says, "No, did you give your rabbi, did you give him the carrots?" So he looks at the guy like why are you suddenly so interested if I gave him the carrots? So he says, because I knew that you're doing it for your rabbi. I knew that you're growing this section of carrots for your rabbi. So every morning I would pour a pint of beer over the carrots. Beer, of course, is the epitome of chametz because it's made out of barley. Okay, and this guy almost faints because thinking that, to his horror, that because of him, the Rebbe, this Rebbe was like God, he's going to eat chametz on Pesach, and to him it was like he almost fainted. So he gets on his horse and he runs to Bells again. Instead of taking 2 hours, it took him an hour and a half. So here it's already 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and he's going crazy because first of all, could be they're using it for the soup, they're using it for the Pesach plate. He's going crazy. He runs into the kitchen. He runs into the kitchen, and he says, "Don't use the carrots." And they look at him and they say, "Why? Why shouldn't we use the carrots?" So he says, "Just first of all, don't use the carrots." They say, "Okay, why?" So he tells them the story. That he meant well. He wanted to give the Rebbe beautiful carrots. His employee also meant well. He didn't know Nebuch. He didn't know that beer is prohibited. And he says, "You're not going to believe what happened." He says, 2 hours ago, right after you dropped off the carrots, the Rebbe walked in to the kitchen. And he sees carrots. He sees beautiful carrots. And he says, "What are these carrots?" So he says that this chassid brought you a gift to use for karpas. Karpas, again, is the thing on the Seder plate. So the Rebbe says, "Throw it away." Okay, an open miracle. The Rebbe was a tzaddik. An open miracle. He saw with his holy eyes that the carrots are chametz, and he said to throw it away. Okay. So the guy, the chassid, is relieved that, okay, he tried. The Rebbe shouldn't be angry. So he went into the Rebbe. He says, "Rebbe, okay, you did a miracle, but I just want to explain myself. I want to make sure that you know that I meant well. I didn't mean chaz v'sholem, God forbid, to." He says, "No, you don't understand. There was no miracle. There's no miracle. I didn't know this whole story." He says like this. He says, everything on Pesach is the way we did it, all the generations. A minhag, a custom on Pesach is holy. I never saw anybody use carrots on karpas. So I didn't want to deviate from the custom that the Jewish people have done for thousands of years. That's treif. That's no good. So when you told this kitchen staff to use it for karpas, I saw that as a deviation of the custom that Jewish people have done for hundreds of years. So that I said to throw it away, because that's treif. The reason I love that story is because it brings out the point how, for example, my mother, Allah Shalom, and I'm sure every mother, they did things on Pesach, and to them this was like what God gave Moses on Sinai. And if you changed it, it was like there's no way. My mother made a certain type of egg noodles, and on the second night she made this thing because that's what her mother did, and on the sixth night she made that thing because that's what her mother did. And if God forbid you change it, it's like treif. It's not kosher. And it brings out the point so beautifully how everything in Pesach is according to the way we saw by our parents. We saw by our grandparents, by our parents. That's why I said before, the young people that became close to Torah and mitzvahs, and let's say they adopted the Chabad principles of not eating, shriya, gebrux, which is wet matzah, and suddenly they come home, and my wife remembers, I'm sure, we went to a place one time when we were first married, and we were at a table, at a Shabbos table, and there was a couple there that was not so religious, and they're telling us about how they spend a month before Pesach making the knedlach, making the matzah balls, and she came up with this idea that she's going to make the matzah balls in an ice tray, so they won't be round; they're going to be square matzah balls. And she was so proud of herself. The matzah ball. Can you imagine her son coming home and saying, "Ma, I'm not going to eat matzah balls. That's it. It's over. The game is over." She's right to a certain degree. She's right because that's what she grew up with, and her father was a tzaddik, and that's what it is. So you have to follow the meaning of your parents. Okay, that's the general rule. Let's get to the Seder. So there are the following mitzvahs need to be done by the Seder, and with this I guess we'll conclude. It's getting a little late. The following things need to be done by the Seder, and in general they're equivalent to men and women as long as they're healthy. The first mitzvah is to drink wine, 4 cups of wine. The minimum. No, the 4 cups of wine is, according to some opinions, rabbinic, but it has a source in the Bible. So it's not a regular rabbinic mitzvah. It's more of a hybrid of a rabbinical and a biblical. So the mitzvah is to drink 4 cups of wine. The problem is that most people have, let's say, a cup like that, which has like 8 ounces. You don't need to have 8 ounces. You can have 3 ounces or 3.5 ounces. This year I went on Amazon, and for $11 I bought 6 glass cups of 4 ounce thing with a saucer, with a saucer, and that's it. That's all you need. And I'll go even further. In order to do the mitzvah the way it's supposed to be, you should actually drink the whole cup. Not like people do a sip, but a whole cup. Now, if you can't drink the whole cup, yeah.
No, it needs to be 4 ounces.
4 ounces, yeah. Just go on Amazon and type in 4 ounce glass cups.
Not so big 4 ounces.
It's nothing. 4 ounces, nothing.
No, that's too little.
A shot glass is a little bit less, I think.
What if a person is sick and cannot take the wine?
I'll get you in a minute. I'll get that in a minute. Get that in a minute. So if you can drink 4 ounces of wine, so the minimum you need to drink is the majority of what we call a revius, which is, let's say, 3.5 ounces. So half of 3.5 ounces is what, 1.75. So if you drink 1.75, which is literally nothing, that's also good enough. Maybe the last cup you need to drink the whole thing for a blessing, but again, the optimum is to drink the whole cup. If you can't drink the whole cup, drink at least the majority of that 3.5 ounces or 4 ounces, which is 2 ounces. So, and according to of each cup. According to the Ashkenazic tradition, women do not have to recline. According to the Sephardic tradition, they say, according to many authorities, they do have to recline. So if you're Sephardic, you need to recline. Okay, if a person is sick or for whatever reason can't drink wine, pregnant or for whatever reason, whatever reason, they could use grape juice. But if they're healthy, they need to use wine. And today you can get Rashi wine, 5% alcohol. It doesn't even, or the blue that you have over there behind you. It's Chaim. Okay, it's okay. So again, if the person is sick or not well or for whatever other reason, they can use grape juice, no problem. But if they're well, they should use wine. And again, today it's easy. You get these light wines that are very good. Okay, so that's the 4 cups. Then another thing we have to, the mitzvah of, this is a biblical mitzvah, is to eat matzah. Now I'll tell you that the minimum that a Jew has to eat, the minimum is a kizayit, which I'll get to in a minute, of matzah on Pesach. That's it. The first night of Pesach, there's a biblical obligation to eat a kizayit. So if all you're
From
gonna,
the first bite, after the first bracha?
I'll get to that. When you,
After we say the bracha of the
Kazayit?
matzah?
well, when you get to the seder, when you get to the part of the seder where you're about to eat matzah, you make two blessings: Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and Asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. So that eating of matzah is you'll fulfill, according to most opinions, the biblical mitzvah. So if all a person is going to eat is one, what we call kazayit of matzah, that's the matzah. That's it. That's what you need to eat, and you should eat it with the hand matzah, the shmura matzah. There's a concept of
How much is kazayit?
I'm going to get to that. There's a concept of shmura, which is a serious issue. Again, I'm going to tell you something very important. Today it's different, but I remember many years ago, used to be a store here called Pavilions, and they sold, actually, this was the beginning where they started selling Pesach products. And there was a nice Jewish couple, and they were standing in line, and they had this big, a box of matzah, and it was chametz. It was chametz matzah. Because matzah, and it actually says to their credit, it says on the box, it says this is not for Passover use. So the matzah has to be kosher l'Pesach. Today they sell matzah everywhere. You can even have machine shmura matzah. It's a serious issue. I don't want to get into it now, but it has to be shmura matzah. Now, the optimum is because matzah should be the handmade shmura, round shmura matzah. If you don't have it, we at Chabad are giving it out this year for the Seder. If you need it, speak to Rabbi Lipsker or Rabbi Moshe. We'll be happy to give you. Otherwise, you can go to Costco, go anywhere you want. You don't have any more? Okay, so go to Cambridge and buy yourself some shmura matzah. Now, the way getting back to the wine, the optimum is to drink it in one gulp. If you can, drink it in two gulps. I don't mean gulp like but drink it at once, not sipping. That's the optimum. And also to do it within 4 minutes. If you can't do it within 4 minutes, do it within 6 or 7 minutes maximum. So everything that we're going to talk about tonight should be done either within 4 minutes optimally, or between 6 and 7 minutes, less optimally.
Can we talk in the middle?
No, you shouldn't talk. So the eating of the matzah, how much is a kazayas? How much is a kazayas? So to be safe, again, a kazayas means an ounce. Kazayas is an ounce. Now there's just, this is what I'm about to say is very important. I know it's technical, and it means the weight of kazayas. There's biblical obligations on the Seder night, and there's rabbinic obligations on the Seder night. On the biblical obligations, we're stricter, and on the rabbinic obligations, we're not so strict. So, for example, the biblical obligation of a kazayit is the result of a lot of dialogue, a lot of pages, is 1 ounce. The rabbinic obligation of a kazayis, we could be lenient and use 2/3 of an ounce. So, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, optimally, and not everybody's able to do it. Optimally, the first time you eat matzah, and there's a reason for it, which I'm not going to get into because it says matzah twice, that you should eat 2 kezesim of matzah, 2 of them. But the second one could be that rabbinic amount.
When is the second one?
The optimum is to eat the first time to eat 2 kezesim. We don't always do it because there's opinion that says that it's only the guy that has the matzah in front of him, but the people around the table only have to eat 1 ounce. But let's say if you're going to decide to be stringent and eat 2 kezesim, so you can eat a hybrid of, again, you have to be a mathematician, of 1 ounce and 2/3. So I'll go and tell you that if you eat a little bit more than 1/3 of a matzah, of a hand matzah, because do your math. if there's 8 matzahs to a pound,
Yeah.
so that means every how many ounces is so so what?
2 ounces per matzah.
It's 2 ounces per matzah, but it's usually less than that, so it's less. Usually the understanding is it's a third of a matzah biblically and a quarter of a matzah rabbinically. So if I didn't confuse you, I'll repeat it.
Just the bottom line.
The minimum that everybody in this room, the minimum that everybody in this room has to eat the first night of Pesach, the first time, is a third of a matzah. A third of a matzah. A third of a matzah. And if you're Sephardic, you have to eat it reclining on your left side.
But if you want to eat 2 kazayas, it's 2 times 1/3.
It's 1 ounce and then 2/3 of an ounce. The second time, okay, the next thing that we eat on the Seder, which is rabbinic, the second thing that we eat on the Seder, which is rabbinic, is maror. Maror means bitter herbs. And there's 2 ways to fulfill the mitzvah. One is by eating actual, what they call in English, horseradish, or chrein, which is that stuff, that the white stuff. Another way is what they call in Hebrew chasa, which is romaine lettuce. So the question becomes, and here comes the Dvar Torah, the question becomes, how can you fulfill the mitzvah of maror with something that tastes so good like lettuce? Sometimes it even tastes sweet. And the rabbinical sermon answer is because that exactly is what happened on Pesach. It began bitter, but it ended up being sweet. So the origin of romaine lettuce, the root, etc., is bitter, but as it grows, it becomes sweet. So the custom of Chabad is that we use both. We use romaine lettuce and a little bit of the chrein. But if you're only using, so again, it's an ounce or 2/3 of an ounce. If you're only using romaine lettuce, which is probably what most people use, number 1, you have to clean it from bugs. Number 2, it's usually, well, again, if you're very serious about not wetting the matzah, you have to dry it, because next time you can have a sandwich. The accepted amount of romaine lettuce is a measurement of 5 by 7. You have to have a picture frame, 5 by 7. Maybe use a little more, because sometimes it remains between your teeth. That's the acceptable amount of romaine lettuce, especially if you can add a little horseradish. So 5 by 7 with a little horseradish is surely enough for everything. That's the second thing we eat. The third thing we eat is called the kairoch sandwich, which is a sandwich that is comprised of a kazayit of matzah. Again, you're taking the third of the matzah, but here, since it's rabbinic, you don't need to take a third. You can take a quarter of a matzah. Again, this is a rabbinic ordination. So you don't have to take the third. You take a quarter of a matzah, you break it in half, and you put an ounce of romaine lettuce, which is 5 by 7, and you have a little horseradish, and you dip it in charoset. You dip it. Some people think that you have to pile the charoset on, but it's, that's really a error. We just dip it in charoset, and then we eat the korach sandwich, again reclining. The final thing that we eat on Pesach, is the afikomen. And again, here there's a controversy, a little bit more than the first time. The controversy is that, according to some opinions, you must eat twice, two kezesim of afikomen. I have to admit that myself, by the time it comes to afikomen, I don't think I try, but I can't eat it, and it's very difficult. But again, you can get by with eating, because some people say that, again, forgive me for putting in a lot of details, there's a controversy among the early commentaries, which is exactly the main mitzvah of matzah. And believe it or not, some people say that today, that we don't have the Pesach sacrifice, and allow me to explain in a minute, just listen, that we don't have the Pesach sacrifice, so the afikomen is like the Pesach sacrifice. So just like the Pesach sacrifice, we had to eat it not on an empty stomach. We had to eat it almost by the end. It's called in Hebrew al hasova, as you're about to become full. It's very delicate because you have to have that bridge between being bursting and almost being full. So the same thing, the afikomen is represented by the Korban Pesach. So some people say that the actual obligation of eating matzah is not the first matzah that we ate a few minutes ago, but this matzah that we eat bafikomen. So therefore you have to have two kezesim, one for matzah and one for Korban Pesach. But the minimum is again the one kezayis, which in this case, again, you could fulfill it with 1 ounce and two-thirds of an ounce. But it's best if you can, to try to eat a third of a matzah for afikomen. So again, let's just make a quick thing. How many kezeitim of matzahs are we? Is somebody that has a very big stomach? How many kezeisim of matzah should he eat? So the first matzah is 2 kezeisim, then 1 kezayis of afikomen, of korach, and 2 kezeisim of afikomen, which is 5. But only 2 of those have to have 1 ounce. Now, if you can't, the minimum is 1 kezayis the first time, 1 little kezayis, a rabbinical kezayis by korach, and 1 kezayis by afikomen. Again, if the minimal biblical obligation on Pesach night is to eat one kezayis of matzah, you fulfilled your mitzvah very beautifully. We get technical, you eat more and more and more, and that's it. So,
It's hard and
What about the egg?
okay, these are all customs. The reason we eat an egg on Pesach is because, a very good question, thank you. How did they used to eat the Pesach sacrifice in the time of the Beis Hamikdash? So the Pesach sacrifice was a lamb, and you had to eat a kezayis, which is nothing. A piece of lamb chop was nothing. But you had to eat it al hasova, right? Meaning you had to eat it after you had your meal. Meaning as you're getting full, you have to eat it, right? So what did they eat till then? So they had another sacrifice called the chagiga. And that was another sacrifice, and they had lamb chops and steaks and all that. And then at the end, they ate the Korban Pesach. So today, we don't have korbanot. So the egg represents the Korban Chagiga. That's why we have it on the Seder plate, the egg. And some people have the custom, my family and many others, that at the beginning of the meal, after you eat the matzah and the maror and everything else, you take the egg, you dip it in salt water, and you eat something. Why salt water? Because some people say that Pesach night was the time that Esther, or it's the yard site of Esther. Some people say that she passed away on Pesach. Some people say that she fasted on Pesach. So to remember Esther, we eat the egg because she was suffering, because she didn't eat. She was fasting on Pesach. So the egg is a food of mourning. Anyway, so the final part of the Seder is L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. We should all merit that L'Shana Haba. But it doesn't have to mean the Rebbe says next year. By next year we will already be in Yerushalayim. Meaning this year we will already be. Hashem should help. We should have a kosher and healthy, happy Pesach.